meeting presenter, Rob Tiffany. Rob has over a decade of wireless software development infrastructure experience. And prior to founding Hood Canal Mobile, he served as the Vice President of Technology at both TrueQuote.com and Common Vision. Rob is a speaker, editor, columnist, and author of articles on topics ranging from personal Java to wireless development. SQL Server CE database development with the .NET framework is Rob's second book, which is to be published by A-Press. With that, I'm pleased to hand this webcast over, and we can get started with today's presentation. Rob, you have the floor.
All right, thank you. Okay, well, today we're going to talk about how you can secure mobile data that you may have on your Pocket PCs via the Compact Framework and SQL Server CE 2.0. I see at least one person I know out there, Peter Foote. Anyway, I'm the president of Hood Canal Mobility. We do a bunch of controls for the .NET Compact Framework and some other applications. And the idea to do this presentation actually came from a small program that we have just called Data Protector, which its whole point is to protect any critical files you may have on your Pocket PC that you don't want people seeing in case you lose your device. I'm an embedded MVP. I usually hang out on the DevBuzz website as far as answering questions. Probably don't answer as many questions on the Compact Framework news groups as all the other MVPs. Actually, it's probably not even close. But yeah, so I hang out with Derek Mitchell, Bill Ryan, Pete Vickers, and Darren Flatt on DevBuzz, and so feel free to come by there anytime you've got questions or you want to find out more about the Compact Framework, SQL CE, and wireless development. Anyway, moving along here, here's what we're going to cover. We'll briefly talk about the why you need the data security, which probably doesn't need a lot of explanation, but that's definitely changed over time from when we first started working with PDAs. Then I'll cover briefly security features that come with SQL CE 2.0, which means you don't have to be an expert in cryptography or how to program that. You can just be a plain old programmer just like me and still get the benefits. And then we'll go in and I'll do this will be more hands-on, and we'll talk about how to get files checked in and checked out of SQL Server CE so that you can keep them secure. Prerequisites for being able to do this probably goes without saying. You need Visual Studio .NET 2003 in order to do Compact Framework development. The focus of the examples I'll be doing today will all be in C#, but they could just as easily be done in VB.NET. You also need experience with the .NET Compact Framework, but I would say basic experience. If you do desktop.NET, then you can certainly do this. And then SQL Server CE 2.0. And again, luckily, if you have Visual Studio.NET, then you get SQL Server CE 2.0 by default. It's going to get copied on there, so you don't have to worry about that. And then as far as the Compact Framework goes, if you have a Windows Mobile 2003 device or later, it's in ROM. If you have an earlier device, then you can download it from Microsoft. Let's move along here. Okay. Well, the agenda, importance of securing Pocket PC data. Then we'll move on to how we're going to use SQL Server CE 2.0 to create a secure storage area on your device, a vault. And then I'll show you how to insert your files into secure storage and then how to pull those files out. So it should be relatively simple. The security issues, when PDAs first came out, the earlier C devices and the palm size and the Pocket PC finally came out and really exploded in 2000, mostly because of the popularity of the iPac. But, obviously Palms have been driving a lot of that, and then there's a lot of other players. They routinely would get lost or get stolen, but for the most part it was never a big deal. Most people using PDAs were consumers. They'd go to Best Buy and they'd buy it and they used it for themselves. I think what's changed today is that more and more enterprises, companies, organizations, even government agencies are now deploying Pocket PCs to their employees. In some cases as replacements for laptops or to augment that. And so now you've got a whole bunch of employees of companies or other government agencies and so forth who are carrying these devices. Then when you layer on the fact that now more and more of these devices, have wireless capabilities like 802.11 and Bluetooth, people are using them in ways that they never did even a couple of years ago. And so now we're finding employees with carrying all kinds of critical data on these devices. And that data, these files that they have on the devices, they could be spreadsheets. They can represent, a company's time, money, their competitive advantage. It could be a marketing strategy. The military uses these. For all you know, that a file on a pocket PC could present, something that's critical to national security. I know that sounds like I'm exaggerating, but you get the gist. Well, the problem with that is that people keep losing these devices, and or they're lost, and groups like Gartner and IDC, have been projecting that loss and theft at around 50%. So there's a good likelihood, it may not happen to anybody in this audience, but there's a likelihood that you could lose your device at some time, and if you happen to have critical information on it, it's pretty easy for someone to get at it. Most people, the Pocket PC, they do have the sign-on when you log in, but as we're finding in practice, lots of people are not using that. And then when you have wireless and you have IP capability going in and out, issues that we didn't think about a few years ago come into play. Like, do I need a firewall on this device? If you've got software that's listening on IP addresses, then people cannot, whereas before people would get your data, if you lost it, now they can potentially come right in the same way that people try to hack websites and get your data that way. So you got Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, CDMA, GPRS, Ethernet. So you're finding more and more open doors that allow people to get at your device over and above just stealing it from you or you losing it. So it's obvious that we need ways to secure these files that you may have on your device. And along the way, obviously, you can secure data as well. And anybody who goes to Pocket Gear and Handango, sees just endless applications that let you secure, critical data like your credit cards or a repository for all your passwords. Lots of e-wallet type applications you see out there. And then you're starting to see a handful of applications that go beyond just securing, data that you might store in fields, but securing actual files that might be on the Pocket PC itself. And so what we're going to go for now is I'm going to show you how you can do that yourself. So let's move along here. We'll talk about how we're going to use SQL Server CE 2.0 to get at that, to have that secure storage. For starters, anything that goes inside SQL Server CE can be password protected. So sure, you can build databases and your data is password protected and nobody can get in there. But over and above that, you've got 128-bit, encryption that SQL CE provides. And so, someone can't look at your database with a hex edit or something and try to figure out, piece together what's inside there. Now, the important thing to remember, though, is it's probably a misnomer to say SQL Server CE provides you with 128-bit encryption. It actually utilizes the built-in 128-bit, RSA encryption that's built into Windows mobile devices at the operating system level. And so, in the same way that you get, the compact framework and ROM on Pocket PC 2003 devices and above, those devices also have that built-in encryption. And so SQL CE utilizes that encryption. So keep in mind, if you've got an older Pocket PC, like one based on 2002 or an even really old one based on the original Pocket PC 2000, if the battery still works in that device, you can still do things like this, but you have to go to the mobility website at Microsoft and download the high encryption pack to add that capability. But any of the newer devices, it's built in, and so it'll work like a champ. The other thing, the last thing here on the slide that gives us the ability to even contemplate putting a file into the database and encrypting it and securing it with a password is the image column that you can have in your base. Everybody talks about storing images in blob fields in SQL Server and things like that. It's the same thing on SQL CE. We can store, files that we open as byte arrays and put them into these image columns and safely keep your documents there. And since we're protected in 128-bit encryption, you feel sure that no matter what happens to your device, this file in that byte array form is going to be safe. All right, let's move along and do our first demonstration where I'm just going to go through the simple code needed to create a secure database using SQL CE 2.0. So hang on with me for a second here, and I'm going to switch to giving you my whole desktop. And let's see here. I'll push the start button on our little sharing toolbar. And so hopefully everybody's seeing my desktop now. You should be. I've got a simple form here in the Compact framework, and basically I've got 3 buttons, one to create the database, one for code to check in files, and another one to check out. Trying to keep this as simple as possible. So for starters, we're going to start with talking about how you create your secure and encrypted database. When you do a project using SQL CE 2.0, one of the things you need to do is go over here to the references area. And as you can see here, I've added a reference to SQL Server CE, and that's important. And then also you need a reference to system.data.common. And the reason for that is later on I use some parameterized queries, and so it utilizes some good stuff in there. So you need to have those referenced in order to work with that. All right, without further ado, let's just take a look inside what we do inside this click event of this create database. Goes without saying, we're going to surround the whole thing in a try-catch block. Before I jump into the code, let's just to kind of drill down. I know a lot of you are used to doing try-catch and your exception and displaying a message box showing that exception. But SQL CE has its own exception handling capabilities, and I want to look at that real quick here. It's more important to first catch a SQL CE exception, and then inside that, it can have multiple errors that could be thrown. So it's not like there's going to be just one error and you're going to show it. It could be more than one error. And so we have to iterate through this SQL CE error collection and grab those. And so this is one way where you can accomplish that. So that if you do have 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever SQL CE exceptions, you'll be able to see them all. And then obviously default to a plain old exception here at the end for anything else that may happen. So let's move back up to the top and we'll look at the first bit of code here. First thing we're going to do is create a secure database. We do that using the SQL CE engine object. So the first line you see here is we're just going to create a new SQL CE engine, and then we need to build a connection string that lets us create this database in the place that we want it. Let me expand this across here so we can see. All right. Now this connection string, you could actually put it here in the constructor, but anyway, it's personal preference, so you can set it to the local connection string property. So for this database we're going to create, we say data source is equal to, and then you need to have a path to where the SDF file is going to be, which is your actual database file. And keep in mind, you can actually name it any kind of extension you want. Even though Microsoft calls them SDF files, it can be anything you want, and it'll work just fine. So in this case, I'm going to say I'm going to create this database into my documents folder, and I'm going to call it Vault, since that seems like an appropriate name for what we're trying to create here. Then I'm going to give it a password. In this case, it'll be hood canal. And then here on the end, where I say encrypt database is equal to true. And again, keep in mind, this only works on Pocket PCs that have the 128-bit encryption as part of the operating system. Also keep in mind, when you're developing using the emulator on your desktop, this kind of code will not work with the default 2002 emulator that comes out of the box with Visual Studio 2003. You need to make sure you upgrade, download the SDKs from Microsoft to get the Pocket PC 2003 SDK. And then over and above that, I would encourage you to download the newer emulator images for the 2003 second edition devices that have Service Pack 2 of the Compact framework already built in over and above the encryption. Anyway, so there you have it. We've got our encrypt database equal to true. Real simple, create database off the engine object, and then we call dispose, and we're going to shut the engine down and let go of all that. So now you'll have your secure database. Now the next thing we need to do is now we need to make a SQL CE connection and connect to that vault.sdf file that we just now created and open a connection to that, and then we're going to create a command object here. And the reason for that is it's not enough to have a secure database. You've got to have a table to put stuff in. So in this case, we're going to go down here in our command text, and we'll do a DDL statement of create table and create a table called documents. And then here we'll have a document ID identity column that'll be our primary key. And then here you'll see we'll create a document name. Just, you know, we're not going to do anything right now with it, but just for future reference, you know, if you decide to go ahead and build a more full-blown application from this code snippets, you may want to have all kinds of metadata surrounding the actual byte array that's stored in the image field. And last but not least, a column called document, and it'll use the image data type. And then we'll call the execute non-query method, and that'll create the table for us, and then we'll close. And then if we're lucky, we won't get down here. So without further ado, let's try this out. I'll set a breakpoint here. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up the emulator. I've just got a Pocket PC 2003 SE emulator running here on the desktop. And I created a Word document called sensitive doc. And this is the file that we're going to put into the database. And there you can see my sensitive Word document. So this is what we'll ultimately put in there. But for starters, we just need to create this vault. So let's run this, debug it rather. And who knows, we may or may not get that usual error the first time you try to deploy something to the emulator. We'll see if we get lucky. And we didn't get lucky. So we'll try it again. It usually works the second time. And our fingers are crossed, and it might work. And here we go. And on the emulator, the program should show up here for us any second now. There it is. Okay. So we'll click Create Database to look at this first bit of code that we've been talking about. So when I click that, we go to our first breakpoint. And we'll just step through all this code and make sure it all works the way we want it to. So we create the engine, got our connection string, and we're going to create a database that's encrypted using a password called hood canal. And we got lucky, it made it right through there. So now we're going to dispose of the engine. Now we're going to go back and connect to the database we just created. We did that. We're going to open the connection, create a command. Now we're going to create our documents table. We're going to actually create it now when we execute the non-query. And that worked okay. And now we'll close our connection. And we made it. So we'll close this. And let's take a look and see what we built. Obviously, seeing is believing. And there we have a Vault SQL CE 2.0 database. So I'm going to go ahead and just click on it right now. And let's do a little more verification using a query analyzer. And I'm going to type in the password we just created in code. So I'm going to type in hood canal. And for those of you who are wondering what in the world hood canal is, it's a waterway over on the Olympic Peninsula across from Seattle. I used to drive submarines, and so there's a Trident submarine base right along Hood Canal. It's real pretty over there. All right, we've connected to the Vault database. We've created a documents table. I can highlight well, first we'll look and see that our columns were created, and in fact they were. And then when you highlight the documents table, you can click the little play button here. And as you can see, we haven't put anything in there yet. All right, so I'll click on that, and then we need to make sure we close our connection to that. I'm sure many of you who have done SQL CE development before wonder why your program stops working when you're working, and then out later it's because Query Analyst has connection, and as you know, we only get one connection to SQL CE 2.0, so I'm sure you're all excited about the next version, Windows Mobile 3.0, which will allow multi-user, multiple connections. So that's always a good thing. All right, so that worked out. And one thing I didn't mention, I did talk about the references you need to set, but if we go to the top of our code here, you know, it's also you want to do it using system data SQL Server CE, and also need you to use system.io. All right, well, let's move back to our agenda now. So I'm going to stop sharing the desktop. And hopefully we'll get back here. Let's go to next and see if it'll take us to the next slide. And it did. All right, so we'll just take a short detour here back to slides until we get right back into code, because this is all about code and not slides. The next thing we do, so now we have a secure storage that we can put stuff in. So now you got to say, well, how in the heck am I going to get files into that? Well, we're gonna do that. Basically, we'll use the file object and the file stream object in conjunction with each other to open a file. And in this case, the Word document, the sensitive doc that we created there, and we're going to open that up, and then we're going to convert it into a byte array. I always think of converting things to a byte array is kind of like beaming up somebody. You know, you have a solid object, and then you need to beam it somewhere, and so you turn it into a byte array, so it goes into its little tiny molecules or atoms, and then we put it somewhere else and then reconstitute it. Okay, no, that's dorky. So that's how I think of it. The next thing we're going to do is, you know, we use the SQL CE command object, and we'll insert the byte array into the table, including the image column, obviously, to get that stuff in there. So let's jump right back into code, because that's more fun. And I'll start sharing here. Okay. So we'll go back to Visual Studio, and now here we are. And this time we're going to double-click on our check-in button. So here's the first thing we do, where we open the file. We just do a file.open, and we that sensitive doc, don't forget, you know, a lot of times in the Pocket PC, people don't realize what the extension is because Pocket PCs don't show the extensions. So anyway, you know, a Pocket Word document ends in PSW. So do the path to that document with the file mode and open, and we're going to open it and open that in, pass that into the file stream object. Then the next thing we're going to do is to create our byte array. So we're going to declare a variable called file data, the byte array data type, and create that, and we'll use the length of what we just got from up here in file stream to do that. Then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to read that in to the byte array, and so we will pull in this guy right here, file data, the length, and there will be no offset. And once we've done that, we'll close the file system object, because now we safely have the byte array right where we need it. The next thing we're going to do is we need to reconnect to the database as we've done before, the password and everything. That's nothing new. And then here's going to be our code. We're just going to do a simple insert. So we're going to insert into our documents table our document name and our document. Obviously, we don't have to worry about the document ID. That's our identity column. And so in this case, we're going to use a parameterized query. And I know you guys are all looking forward to the next version of SQL CE where we'll have name parameters, so you don't have to use question marks anymore. That's always a good thing. Anyway, so we'll pass those parameters. We're going to add parameters for document name. We'll call it sensitive document, and then a parameter, you know, for the document column, and that's where we're going to pass in our byte array. And I refer to this as the simple way of adding parameters. There's a few other ways you can do it that get a lot more complicated, but we're doing it the easy way here. We're not worrying about doing it in prepared statements or anything. And we'll execute the non-query, and then we'll close. And then, if all goes well, and then we know this has all gotten into the database, then we'll delete the file off the drive there. I say drive, you know what I mean, memory and Pocket PC. So anyway, let's take a walk through that. And I'm just sure it's going to start the first time. Okay. No, it didn't. Something blew up. Let's try it again. I guess this would be a presenter's worst nightmare if Visual Studio just decides to start blowing up on you. But hopefully we got lucky this time. Okay. Whew. All right, let's look at check-in. Let's walk through this code. All right, so we'll step through. We're going to open up our Word document. We've done that. Now we're going to create a byte array. We're going to read that into the byte array here. Now we're going to close the file stream object. Now let's connect to our Vault database and open it. And now let's do our insert. We'll add our parameters to the command object. And as you can see there, there's that length 440. So yes, there really is something in there. Execute our non-query. And close our connection. And we didn't get thrown to the exception handler, so then we feel that we're safe to go ahead and delete the file. And we're done there. So we'll go ahead and close the application and see what we can see here in the File Explorer on a Pocket PC emulator. All right, now as you can see, the Word document is now gone. Let's see if it actually made it into the Vault database. So let's connect to that. Let me type in our password and connect. All right. So there's our database, our tables, and we've seen those. So we're going to highlight documents. The last time it was empty, so let's push the play button again and see if something's in there this time. And we got lucky. So now we have a document ID, which is our identity column. There's sensitive document string we put in there. And then here's a bunch of numbers. These represent the Word document converted to a byte array and then how it's being held in the image column. So it's all in there. So now we can get out of it. And let's close our connection to the database and close Query Analyzer. And then we'll go back to the next slide. And here we go. All right. And again, a short slide before we get back to code. Now we're going to retrieve files from the secure storage. Obviously, this doesn't do us any good if you can only put it in there. It's kind of like the Hotel California checking out and never being able to leave. So we're going to talk about getting that out of there. Again, we'll use ADO.NET. This time we're going to use the SQL CE data reader to read through that table and then pull the byte array image from the image column. And we'll have to take that and we'll have to cast it explicitly to a byte array variable that we've already created. And then we're going to use the file stream object to create a new file, and we'll create it right in the same place where it was before. And so we actually create the file, and then we're going to write that byte array data into it. And so we've beamed your file back to where it came from, and it'll be reconstituted on your Pocket PC, and everybody will be happy. All right, so let's move. This will be our last bit of code. So we'll share the desktop again. And all right, I'm going to push start on that. So hopefully you guys can see the desktop. So the last thing, checkout. So the first thing we need to do to check the file out of the database so you can get it back is we're going to create a byte array variable right here. We'll call it document. And as we've done so many times before, we'll just connect to the database with our proper credentials. And next we're going to read from the database with the command object. And so just real simple, select document name and document from documents. And we'll use the SQL CE data reader to execute that reader. And we know we only have one thing in there. And so we're going to loop through there, and I'll show a message box showing the name of the document. And then here's the important part. We from the document column, we'll explicitly convert the data in there to cast it to a byte array, and then pass that into the document byte array variable that we created up here. And then we'll close the data reader and close the connection. And then we're going to take that document byte array that we've got and put it back. So the first thing we'll do is a file stream object, and we're actually going to create the file, kind of create an empty shell of a file, if you will, and use the create mode here. And then the file stream object, we'll write that byte array and along with its link to that file, and then we'll have our file back again. So let's run this thing. Hang on, let me make sure I put a breakpoint up here. Okay. And we're off. Everybody cross your fingers. I think we all know that this is all going to work a lot better in the would-be release of Visual Studio than it does today. So definitely looking forward to that. All right, let's move on to our checkout button. Let's click on checkout and let's step through the code. You can tell I'm not running on a hyper-threaded Pentium for 3.4 gigahertz, obviously, because we're in slow motion here. All right, so we're going to create the byte array variable. We're going to connect to the database. It's letting us connect. Now we're going to just do our simple select query, pass it into SQL CE data reader, and then we're going to loop through that. And we're going to throw up a message box and say, yep, there's our sensitive document. And then the next thing is the most critical part. We're going to cast the document that's in the image column to our document variable, and let's take a quick look there, and yep, there it is, document, and it's linked as 440. So I think we're on the right track. Now we're going to close the data reader and close the connection. Now we're going to create the file. When you are going to take this code and expand upon it and maybe build your own full-blown security app like this, maybe some of the things you might want to keep as far as metadata and columns is probably the full file name of sensitive doc PSW, so you'll know what to call it, writing it back out again. So anyway, we're going to do that. And now let's write the document out and see if it works. And it did. So that's all good. So let's click OK and see what we got. And lo and behold, we now have a sensitive doc sitting on our Pocket PC. And so it's back in view. And let's see if it's gobbledygook or if we really beamed it back to its normal state. And there's my sensitive Word document. So it's all good. That worked great. One thing to keep in mind, at least I found in working with stuff like this, is this doesn't work with everything. Like read-only, hidden type documents. Like I've noticed trying to do the same thing. Your Pocket PC keeps a bunch of templates for Pocket Excel and Pocket Word and things like that. Don't have quite as much luck with those. But normal files you have on your machine should work just fine. One other thing you might think of doing, we'll look back at the Pocket PC emulator again. We pulled it out, but as you can see, I didn't really do anything with the database to officially have it checked out. We've pulled it out, but let's see, hood canal. We've pulled it out, but we've also left it behind in the database. So let's take a look and verify that, which obviously it's going to be there because you didn't see me write any delete code. When you go to write your own version of this, and enhance it, you'll probably want to delete it from the database since you've pulled it out. The program I've built called Data Protector, does a lot of things like that, and we'll talk about that in a little bit for those of you who just want to get something cheap and don't want to do this yourself, which is not as much fun, obviously. All right, we'll stop sharing the desktop here, and we'll go back live, and we're in the home stretch here. So our summary, we've been through all this. Obviously, it goes without saying that more and more critical information is now being stored on Pocket PCs, and it should be taken seriously. It should be taken seriously, on a personal level. When you have things yourself, it should be taken seriously at a corporate level, at a corporate IT level. That should be managed on a large scale. And so, if there's devices out there, it goes without saying that software like this is would be incredibly valuable to any company who's deployed, tens, hundreds, or thousands of Pocket PCs, because you just never know what's on there. We spent the last 10, 20 years making sure that, we can give people laptops and that laptop data is going to be secure. So there's no reason why Pocket PCs should be any different. The next thing to think about and remember is that knowledge of cryptography is not necessary to build this program. Forrest Gump could build this program if he knew how to program in .NET. There's some really brilliant MVPs out there who can show you how to do cryptography, and you can certainly go to OpenNetCF and find all those great cryptography libraries if you want to get down and dirty and do it that way. It's definitely a great learning experience. So for those of you who just want to get it quick and dirty and have it working quickly, obviously this is a good way to do it. And last but not least, obviously SQL Server CE is a great place to secure data. You just thought it was going to be a database for all your vertical applications, but no, it's also a security vault. So, unintended consequences. So that's a good one to have. So, and our call to action goes without saying, if you haven't done so, really start working with Compact Framework development and SQL Server CE today with Visual Studio.NET 2003. Not just because I love it and I like to write books about it and espouse it, and all my MVP buddies love it, but think about the inevitability of where we're headed in development. Just like it was inevitable that we were going to move from DOS to Windows, someday in the future, and that day is coming soon, it will not be a specialty or an esoteric thing for you to be a mobile developer for Pocket PCs using the Compact Framework. At some point in the future, people will think of them as just another client, and you'll be expected to be able to jump back and forth from desktop to server to mobile development to smartphone development. So while it's a novelty now and it's a small community of people today, that's not always going to be that way. So I think it's a good idea to get working with that, as time permits, as soon as you can. Secondly, take these code snippets that I've shown you, and you can see how darn easy it was. Even I could figure it out. And take it and see if you can build a full-blown security app with it, with a bunch of other features that you might care about. There are things that make it easier for users. And if you don't have the time to do that, obviously the genesis for this idea for this session is a product I call Data Protector that I sell via Hood Canal Mobility, and we sell it on Handango and Pocket Gear. I think for like $9.95, so it doesn't cost much of anything. Nobody's getting rich on this deal. But it basically takes those common core principles of secure database and a file check-in, check-out. You can tell I have a document management background from that, and really enhances it and makes it easy for users to build that. In fact, the way this application works, the user has no idea that SQL CE is what's causing all the security to happen. And so you could definitely go take a look at that. And I will also make sure I get all the code snippets, this whole project that I just showed you. I'll get it out on the Hood Canal Mobility website and zip it up so you can download it and play with it yourself and start your own project. Moving along, some more information. Some good places to hang out if you're into mobile development. My favorite is devbuzz.com. It was the first, the original embedded VB website You know, embedded VB is what really got me going in mobile development for Pocket PCs. I remember the day in the fall of 2000 when all of a sudden there's these embedded visual tools out there for a free download from Microsoft. And I was like, well, that's kind of cool. I didn't own a Pocket PC, but I sure downloaded it and used the emulator. And then realized, wow, nobody's written any books on this. And so I just dove into it and wrote one of the first books on EVB development, which that one's listed on the bottom side, working with Pocket Access, and then a bunch of other books on it followed. There's a bunch of books on SQL, Windows CE that preceded this. But anyway, that's what kind of got me excited about that community. And Derek Mitchell, who started DevBuzz, created a great portal for all these developers to exchange ideas and write articles and things like that and help each other and build it into a great community way before we had this super awesome Compact Framework news group on Microsoft, which is, I think, one of the top news groups on the planet. Another great place to hang out is opennetcf.org. These are some of the most brilliant people you'll meet. People like one of the people here in the audience today, Peter Foote, Chris Tackey, Jenny. There's so many I can't list all their names. But not only are they brilliant people who have written incredible code to enhance and augment the Compact Framework, but they really, you know, by doing so, they really give it on themselves and give back to the community because they're doing it for free. They're doing it for the love of development, and they're doing it to help you and to help the community. So definitely go check that place out. There's some great stuff there. You'll be able to do things with the Compact Framework that you never imagined possible. And then, of course, I have to plug my website, Hood Canal Mobility. Probably don't have all the good free stuff that OpenNetCF does and those guys. But I've got a number of controls that I sell for the Compact Framework on there. Probably the most notable ones. I have a series of different signature capture controls which you can use to build your own proof of delivery applications or, you know, different workflow, you know, anything that needs a digital signature with a whole bunch of stuff. It's not just this digital signature. Obviously, it lets you do a whole bunch of other things, fraud detection and things like that, which makes it a valuable tool. I also sell a control called NetPerceptor, which has been nominated by Pocket PC Magazine for the Software 2004 awards this year. So that helps you build. You can put that control in your app, and it makes it network aware. Kind of runs on a background thread and fires events at your application and lets you create a simple state machine that tells you if your wireless or any kind of network is available at that moment. And so then your application can actually automatically make decisions based on those scenarios as they happen. And so I'm really proud of that application. And then obviously these two books here at the bottom, SQL CE Database Development with the .NET Compact Framework and Pocket PC Database Development with Embedded VB. Those are out there. And have no fear, there'll be a new edition coming probably in the spring or summer, you know, to coincide with the WIDBE release. Next year we'll have an updated edition that'll track with SQL Mobile 3 and Compact Framework 2.0. So I'd be looking for that, you know, I guess not quite a year from now, somewhere in there, somewhere to coincide with the release of WIDBE. Let's see here. All right, when we get to the end here, I know you've already been told this or you've read it. You know, you'll submit text questions to me using your Ask the Question button. If you need to get a hold of me, excuse me, via email, it's rob.tiffany@hoodcanalmobility.com. Again, I also, with a bunch of other good MVPs like, you know, Bill Ryan and Pete Vickers and others over at DevBuzz, we're there to answer your questions in different forums there. And then it goes without saying, hang out at the Compact Framework News Group, and anything you can ever imagine will be answered by the best MVPs in the business. As far as getting up to speed on .NET, there's a bunch of webcasts coming up that you can register for throughout the month of September. It's stacked in pretty full. But Russ's Toolshed, Russ Does Windows. We got Russ doing ASP.NET. We've got some Windows application development with .NET with an introduction and essential concepts. An MSDN events DVD ROM guided tour. Boy, that's exciting. We got tips, tricks, tools, and best practices for .NET Compact Framework Developer coming up on September 8th. Definitely look for that if you're in this group of mobile developers. And also on the 8th, we got ASP.NET Best Practices. We've got some other MSDN events. You can also find out about events in your local area. We got the local Microsoft Developer Community Champion, Microsoft.com/DCC. The what is InfoPath with VisualStudio.net, building custom controls with ASP.NET, and ASP.NET overviews. And the reason you'd want to check these out is to get valuable developer knowledge, network with some of your peers, and get the Visual Studio 2005 Beta 1, which is definitely a good reason to get it. That'll be throughout September on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 1 to 5 local time, and those are all across the United States. So definitely go check out the MSDNevents.com website and find out all about that good stuff. Other MSDN webcast resources, or there's a webcast blog, believe it or not. Everybody and their dog has a blog, so blogs.msdn.com/MSDN-webcast. It's also an RSS feed that you can hook up to. Again, ask a question at the end if you have any about this stuff, and then you can check out recordings of all the past MSDN webcasts. We turn this into a deal you can watch in a media player at Microsoft.com/USA/webcast/on-demand. And then if you have any good content ideas for webcasts, definitely send us an email at webcasts@microsoft.com. And again, go to msdn.microsoft.com/webcast and check out all webcasts that are coming up. And now I'm going to go to a survey page that I will leave up here for you guys. You can do the survey. And with that, I guess we can start any questions you may have about what we just talked about. So use your question button. I'm going to see if anything's coming up here. Okay. All right, I'll start reading some questions that are sitting up here right now. I've got one from Karen J. that says, I have an XML file with sensitive configuration settings. Can I secure it in the same way? Karen J., yes you can. Any old file will work, so that's definitely not a problem. Bill H., where does the key come from that is actually used to encrypt the data? See, you're asking me a hard cryptography question. It's just magic. No, it's not just magic, obviously. It's all built. It all works together between Pocket PC, underlying CE.NET operating system, and SQL Server CE. I don't actually know the precise answer to your question. All I do know is that it works. Moving on. We got AG here. Where do I download the code using this demo? I will zip it up right after this and upload it to the Hood Canal Mobility website, and I'll have a link on the home page so you can see it real easily, and I'll have that up this afternoon, no problem. Let's see, move along. Renato, if I have a security database, is there anything careful I need to do when I synchronize to SQL Server? That is interesting. I don't think you have to do anything particularly special. I would assume when you synchronize, you're going to use RDA or merge replication, and you'll have a same kind of column in SQL 2000, and it should just transfer that byte array just the same, and you shouldn't have any issues, I would imagine, reconstituting that back on your PC, as far as I know. I might be in left field, but I'm pretty sure that's how it works. It should work just fine that way. Where can I download VB.NET samples? Boy, I saw that coming. I will create a VB.NET version of this for you, and have that in a separate project, and I will zip that up as well, so you can have that, Rick. All right. Chora. Let's see. You must understand that in a multi-developer company, downloading once and distributing. Oh, I'm trying to read this whole thing. Webcast has a great advantage. Yes, definitely. You'll be able to come back and see this webcast again and again at MSDN. And again, I'll make sure you guys get all the code so that you and any of your developers in your company will have access to it. We're going to find an admin tool for SQL CE. Well, the one admin tool, at least at some level you can call it an admin tool, is Query Analyzer, which you can use to construct. You can use it can do everything actually. You construct databases with it, tables, DML, DDL, you name it. You can do it from Query Analyzer. Things are right now. Pete Vickers at GUI Innovations has an application that you can get that allows you to, from the desktop, connect to your Pocket PC databases, using SQL CE, and lets you manipulate and perform administrative functions from the desktop to that. And then that being said, as we all know, when Yukon comes out and SQL Mobile 3, Enterprise Manager, or what it's going to be called next, some kind of workbench, whatever. I'm just doing a horrible job there. It too will also allow you to connect down to your device and administer your SQL CE database. So there's lots of choices there. I did restore default panel layout option, but it still doesn't work. I'm not sure if I know what that means.
I'm handling him. Don't worry about that, Rob.
Sorry about that. Okay, I have a Wi-Fi environment. Can I use my password used to log on the network to open an SDF file? You can if you want. You can use any kind of password you want against your SQL CE database when you create it. It's totally up to you. Just keep in mind, the obvious stuff about using the same password for everything. You could get in trouble there. But yeah, there's no reason why you can't do that. Let's see, Troy. Could you encrypt the one SQL Server CE database and store inside another SQL Server CE database? I have not done that, but I don't see why you couldn't. And I'm so glad you asked. You probably want to do it just because. But yeah, I can't imagine why you couldn't do it. It's just another binary object, and you should be able to open that whole file and convert it to a byte array and then slam it into another database. So tentatively, I'm going to say yes. I haven't tested it myself, but I got to believe that would probably work. Is there any other questions out there? Going once.
That looks like it's it.
I think that's it. All right. Well, I'll hand it over
Call it
to
a wrap. Okay, I'd like to extend a special thanks to Rob for presenting today's program, and I'd like to also thank everyone else for attending. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes today's MSDN webcast. Thanks for joining us. You may now disconnect from the audio portion of this conference.